The question before us, it's always good to know what the question is, isn't it? The question is, who wants to be a millionaire? Because Zacchaeus did. And that's the challenge today. Who would like to be a millionaire? It's a problem being rich, right? I had a conversation with someone recently who said that they didn't actually want to win the lottery if it came up. It'd be too much money. They're not ready for it. But what would you do with all your riches? So here's how this is going to work. There are genuinely some questions. I want you to make sure you are with people. You can pick your answers. I'm not actually going to give you any money, but you only know if you've done well in the quiz if you decided. So make sure you've got 2 or 3 people around you. We've got questions A, B, C, and D. You can phone a friend, but I'd rather you didn't. But you can certainly ask the audience, because that's what I'll be doing. Okay? Here we go. Question 1. How did Zacchaeus get to see Jesus? 4 options there. Have a word with each other. What was it? Did he use a periscope? Did he use binoculars? Was it Google Maps? Did he climb a tree? Don't shout it out. You'll spoil it for all the other people around you. Just talk to the people next to you. Make sure you know what the answer is. You got your answer? Okay. Nobody needs to go 50-50. Floyd and Eleanor, what have you gone for on your team there?
We think D.
You think D? They've gone for D. You want to lock that in? Final answer? Final answer. It's right. He climbed a tree. It's an amazing bit of the story. And it tells us that, it's a relief to me as not a very tall man that we're included in the gospel. Jesus is worth seeing. It was worth Zacchaeus putting the effort in. There's something back then that is still true now that means Jesus is worth going to a bit of effort to look at, to find out about it. He had an itch, an urge. He needed to see what was really going on with him. And maybe that's what's brought you here today. We're here for all sorts of different reasons. But maybe you too are thinking, I need to know a bit more about Jesus. And you're putting the effort in, and this is the tree you've climbed. If you're curious about God or about Jesus or about church, then I encourage you, let that itch play in you. And come talk to me if you need to. Don't squash it down or ignore it. That urge is important. It changed Zacchaeus' life. Next question. You're off to a good start. I haven't worked out how much money you'd have won so far. How are you all doing? So, what was Zacchaeus' job before he met Jesus? Rubbish collector, stamp collector, tax collector, camel collector. I don't want answers yet. Talk to the people on your table. You ought to agree. Might have made these a little too easy. What was his job before he met Jesus? Theo, which answer have you gone for? Tax collector. Not camel collector? I like camel collector. I could collect. No? Tax collector. Tax collector. C. C? Seems to be in a broad agreement. Is it right? Yes. Oh, well done, Theo. Good job. You're paying attention. He was a tax collector, which was an interesting job back then. If you were the tax collector, you were working for the Romans, and they didn't like the Romans. The Romans were in charge. They were oppressing them. They were killing people. It was not a fun regime to live under. And Zacchaeus worked against his own people, the Jews, on behalf of the enemy. And it made him very rich by taking money from the people that were supposed to be his friends and family. That sort of person was outside. He wasn't liked. And yet Jesus was for him. And he was for Jesus. Jesus is still for everyone. It's a reminder, some people say, well, I'm not ready to go to church. I couldn't be a Christian. I'm not good enough. And that's kind of not the point, isn't it? You don't have to be good enough to be a Christian. Being a Christian is a thing that we do when we realize we're not good enough. And that's what Zacchaeus learned. Okay, next question. Similar one. What was Zacchaeus' job after he met Jesus? Did it change? Same options. Did he become a rubbish collector, stamp collector, or camel collector? Did he change his mind? Did he change his mind? What do you think? Are we still going for a tax collector? Amelia, what have you got? C, still tax collector. Is it? Of course it is. We've been talking a lot about jobs and work at church lately, and actually all of your jobs, by and large, I should hope, unless you're doing something particularly evil, all of your jobs are important and good things that are worth doing well. We're not called to give up our jobs when Jesus calls us to follow him. Some people are. I was. But most of us aren't. Most of us are called to carry on doing whatever we do. Our whole life is an important part of being a Christian. And we're called to do that well and with love. And you can be a doctor or a rubbish collector or a stamp collector. I don't even know if there are camel collectors, but you could be one and be a Christian one. You could be a parent or a friend or a teacher or a plumber or a phone centre worker or a banker. You could even be a tax collector. You could be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He's the ultimate tax collector. Is it still the same person it was yesterday? But you could be that person and do it with love and compassion and do it for Jesus. And it is my prayer that whoever's doing that does. And I can only imagine the difference it would make in the world and in this country if every workplace and every community was filled with people doing the right thing for Jesus wherever they could. Whatever your job, whatever your role, Jesus thinks it's worth doing well. So, next, what does Jesus call Zacchaeus to do? He meets Jesus. He's been after that. He climbed this tree. What does he call him to do? Does he say, give away half of your money? Does he say, give away all of your money? Does he say, buy Jesus a Ferrari? Top local brand of camel at the time? Does he say, invest it in an offshore account, maybe in Panama, somewhere with really good interest rates? There's no extradition treaty there. That'd be a sensible place to put all your money. What does Jesus call Zacchaeus to do with his money? Joseph, what have you gone for? You think it might be what? You think it was give half of it away? Interesting. What have we all got? Let's see what the answer is. He does. He does, but he kind of doesn't. That's what Zacchaeus decides to do with his money. It's not what Jesus said to do, right? We're not called to poverty. Presumably, giving away half his money left Zacchaeus still relatively well off. But if we are wealthy, as Zacchaeus was, and wealth is a variable term. I've been stood in a place this last couple of weeks where people were walking around in what could only be described as half a T-shirt with just holes hanging off it, and they weren't complaining about that by and large, and they didn't have access to soap, but most of them didn't have access to running water. I don't think I've met anyone before then in this country that didn't count as wealthy, but it's complicated, isn't it? We don't get to compare ourselves to the whole world. But if we are wealthy, then we're called to be outrageously generous with it. To think, how can I make a difference in the world? And that might mean giving lots of it away. There was a chap in the Bible, Jesus said, give it all away. But he doesn't say that to most people. But we're called to give away whatever it is that Jesus is telling us to. The other thing that he did, of course, was give away 4 times whatever he'd stolen from people. He'd cheated them out of. That's astonishingly generous. He didn't just say, well, I was wrong, I'll give you your money back. I was wrong, I'll give you back 4 times. It was costly. And I think there are few things quite as powerful as standing up in public and admitting when we were wrong about something and trying to make amends. It has a hugely powerful effect on us and to those that see us doing it. I hope that we as a church, both here in Calverley, but nationally and internationally, when we see that we've got things wrong, that we will be prepared to stand up and say, we've got this wrong and we're sorry, we're trying to make amends. But I hope that you as individuals have that strength as well. I seem to have missed a question here that's not on the thing. The question was, what does Jesus call Zacchaeus to do? Have we got that question? No, it was back a few. I said, what did he call him to do? It was have dinner, give his money away, go on holiday, or plant trees. 4 good things. But actually, Jesus only called Zacchaeus to one thing. He said, can I come to your house and have dinner? Sometimes we get, I think, jumbled up with the church is asking us to follow all sorts of rules and make important sacrifices. But what Jesus said to Zacchaeus was, can I come to your house and have lunch? What Jesus wants is to just be with us. And it was scandalous, as we've heard. This man was an outrageous sinner, and nobody liked him. And that's who Jesus wanted to be with. Jesus is always looking for the people who need it. He's always looking for sinners. And it's a big word, but it means anybody whose life isn't perfectly lined up with how God thinks that they should be living it. And it definitely includes me. And if vicars are on the list, probably we all are. But he doesn't give Zacchaeus a lecture on sinning. And I'm not going to give you that either. I don't think that's what church is for. It's not you're doing this wrong. He just sits with him and connects with him and listens to him. And because of that, Zacchaeus changes his mind and his behavior. I think if we know people who are not doing it right, and that might even be us, then the first thing that we offer those people is compassion and presence and being with them and often eating. It reminds me that what we're going to do after the baptism is gather around the table of the meal that Jesus left us to. That eating with Jesus is often the first part on the path. So as the last question from the gospel is, what are we called to do? What is Jesus calling you to do? You see, there's no options there. I don't know what the things are that Jesus is calling you to do today. It's one of the complicated bits about church. Sometimes you get a sermon where it's very clear. Vicar says you should be doing this. Stop doing that. Give us your money, etc. But you need to work this out today. And there'll be times in the service where there's just a little bit of quiet, and maybe you'll notice an itch, an urge, like Zacchaeus had to climb the tree, and you'll be thinking, I need to do something about that. I encourage you to pay attention to that. But if you're lost, we were told that Jesus comes to seek and to save and help us find out where we are. Next bit is about the service today. What are we doing next? If you've been paying attention, what's happening next today? Are we washing up, eating dinner, cooking dinner? How would we characterize that today? What are we doing next? Pick an answer. What do you think is going to happen? Washing up, cooking dinner, eating dinner. Enzo, you've got an answer. What are you going for? Washing up. You're going for washing up. Okay, we're going to wash some stuff. Anybody got do you want to phone a friend? What does your mum think? You think A, you're changing your mind. That's a good answer. We're washing next. We're going to do a baptism. Jesus only left us 2 instructions when he went. He said, gather together, eat this meal. And he said, go into the whole world baptizing people. And we're going to do washing. It is a bit like washing your hands before dinner, isn't it? We're going to do washing now and we eat dinner later. This is a funny thing that we do in baptism. I have to be honest, I don't understand it. Paul's a priest. He's been here. He's been a priest for many years. Do you understand what we do when we do baptism, Paul? Only God knows. But he asked us to do it. And we do this thing where we follow Jesus' instruction. We invite him into our lives. And I do believe that something happens when we do that. That something real goes on and Jesus will come and live in Valentina in some kind of new and special way today. It's a sign of the family. It's more than a sign. Somehow this makes Valentina part of the family. And it's a family act. It reminds all of us who've already been baptized, which is most of us, I think, that this is a vow that either we made or was made for us. And it's a chance to revisit our vows. But it's also a thing that we don't do as individuals. This thing only works because the church does it together as God's baptized people. As God calls Valentina into his family today, it's a reminder that you're never too young to be starting your Christian journey. And you're never too old. I meet people of 80 or 90 who are about to step into that role as well, who would like to be baptized. So if you would like to be baptized, come and see us. I'll wrap it up there. I don't know where you're at with your journey. I'm reminded of that joke of the man going to London and he asks for directions. The person says, oh, if I was going to London, I wouldn't start from here. That's the only place you can start from if you want to make a start on your journey. As I said, come and see us.